This is the Criterion Creeps podcast, and tonight we're talking about Solaris from 1972, directed by Andrei Tarkovsky, and we're joined by Patreon guest host Oliver Granger. Hi, Oliver.
As long as you don't mention that I spent $50 to get here again, I told everyone who's going to listen that it was just my love of film that got me here.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, you can tell your fans that, and then we'll tell other people too. It's like, oh, you want to be a guest? That $50, that was the first for the first couple. It is now 5,000.
Yeah, I told everyone I'm on a podcast. Like, oh wow, how'd you get on? I was like, oh, you just donate a little bit of money, and
you gotta know your stuff. You know, we're looking for the best of the best. Just tell them that
we're just calling in the big guns.
Yeah, the big dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Solaris, a synopsis here from Letterboxd.
Oh man.
No tagline, sadly. A psychologist is sent to a space station orbiting a planet called Solaris to investigate the death of a doctor and the mental problems of cosmonauts on the station. He soon discovers that the water on the planet is a type of brain which brings out repressed memories and obsessions. So this Solaris is not to be confused with the prog rock band from Hungary, neither opera by Dai Fujikara or Detlev Galatinert, the Atari 2600 video game, the Sun Death Tyrant from Grant Morrison's DC 1 Million comic. This is Tarkovsky's Solaris.
Is that better?
Well,
good question.
We're going to find out. So this is my second time watching Solaris, maybe third, depending on whether the first attempt counts. Many years ago, probably like a year after high school, maybe, my friend Corey had bought this on DVD, and it was like a Saturday night with a bunch of 19, 20-year-old men looking to watch some movies, have some good times, and someone's like, hey, let's watch Solaris. And within about 10 minutes, it was turning into long silences and people going, and it's like, yep, that's not going to work tonight. This is not the movie for this audience. So yeah,
fun.
Hey, so RJ, when did you first realize this movie did not star Oliver Reed?
I find that I feel like you're trying to trick me, because is this like, what was that movie that I didn't realize?
Two actresses.
Yeah.
The episode will show I also was fooled.
Yes.
Yeah. So I feel like you're trying to trick me. So my answer is going to be no. It always starred Oliver Reed. I don't know what you're talking about. So is that the answer?
No. This movie does not star Oliver Reed, but man, it was on my mind an awful lot. I just wanted to get that out there. I don't know, Oliver, if you're much of a Oliver Reed fan, sharing the same name, but I just like looked at this guy, like it's like The Brood. I don't know. He's not as heavy set, I guess. This Russian man. Anywho,
I didn't see the Oliver Reed connection, to be honest, but huge fan.
Yes, he's a beast.
Have you ever looked up his interviews on YouTube?
Like when he's like loaded? Or...
Yeah, and he's sort of when people ask him about feminism or something like that. It's good watching.
Okay. Sounds like Orson Welles style.
Yeah, it's exactly. He's like nice. Orson Welles and Marlon Brando. They all ended up.
Well, they're Hellraisers. There's like actually a book on it. Yeah.
But they're more rascals, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, RJ, I got another question for you.
What now?
Did you recall that Solaris was discussed at the end of your favorite film, Funny Games?
No, I didn't, because that's the worst fucking movie I've ever seen. And yeah, I'll say it. That movie sucks. And in 12 years, when I'm long dead and have been replaced by two other co-hosts, I hope that Frank of them... Oliver. Yeah. Frank and Oliver. I hope that one of them echoes my sentiments and just tells it like it is and tells the entire world that they're wrong about Funny Games. Okay?
Coming to the Criterion Collection near you.
No. It sucks. So no, I don't remember that they were talking about Solaris in that movie. And frankly, I don't care.
So, all those things aside, this is based on the novel by Stanislaw Lem, which I believe, RJ, you just finished audiobooking.
I did. Yeah, I just finished a week ago. So when I get to my segment, I can talk about that if you want, or I can talk about it now, whatever you feel.
We'll hand it off to you, and you can talk about it at that point. So,
sure.
My Solaris thoughts. So, this is a movie that is not for everyone. I think is a fair thing to say. The first hour of this movie is quite a chore, I think. It starts off with our boy, Mr. Psychologist, Chris. He is walking around, I guess like a country estate of a friend, looking at things. We get these like really kind of nice shots. This movie has many, many nice shots. Tarkovsky did not slump around in the cinematography area.
One way to put it.
Of like prongs, like seaweed things, just like under the water. Those things kind of spooky. They don't feel earthly, but here we are on Earth shooting this stuff. And then he's like hanging out with a former cosmonaut, I guess, talking about his experiences. And then there's Burton, a guy who's given
Tim Burton
himself, giving a report on on his experience going to this water body, this mass called Solaris, this faraway planet somewhere. Doesn't actually exist. What?
Actually, I think Oliver is going to interrupt. Isn't Burton the name of the scientist in the American remake, but not in this one? Because in the original, it is Jabrano and Snout, and then Sartorius, not Burton.
Burton's
right?
Burton's the guy.
Oh, he's the pilot.
He's the pilot.
Seen it ages ago. I was just going to say, fantastic makeup on him. I couldn't tell if they aged him or de-aged him, and there was. I didn't realize till afterwards. He's like, I'm the guy in the video. I was like, wait, do they put aging makeup or de-aging makeup?
It's a good question, Jarrett. What is the answer?
What year was he born is the
look into
solution. So yeah, no, like that was like kind of a weird thing. So you're watching it and you're watching people watching TV, but it's shot in the most like that breaking that 180 rule where like you're just filming these people watching TV straight on, and then it cuts to the footage they're watching, but they never like have like the scene where they're actually watching it projected on a screen or anything like that. They could be like looking at anything. It's really a weird choice, and I don't know. It's amongst many little weird ticks with this movie on the whole.
Talking about ticks, did you hear the beeping in that scene? Was there a weird beeping for you during that scene?
Yes, and I was wondering, like, is something happening in my house? Because it doesn't sound like it's in the movie either. But yeah, because it's
guys, I have an answer.
The beeping is in between the cuts of the camera cutting, and I guess it's like a stylization, but it's like again for a film that is like all about like affectations and stylization. It's like, oh, there's just another one.
Hey, Jared, I have an answer for you.
Okay.
Vladislav Dovzvetsky was 31 when he took on the role of Burton, pilot. So they did age him.
I feel like they aged and de-aged him then.
Yeah. So they aged him and maybe de-aged him. More interesting, this dude died when he was 39 in 1978. Why? I don't know. I haven't got that far. But yeah, he was a young man when he took on this role.
Okay. So we get this scene where you get this moment that I just find baffling where he's talking about, well, we got video footage of this experience I just talked about. And then they go to play it and you're like, so they never thought of looking at the footage before they actually screened it for this like panel of people. It's just like, I don't understand. You're just like, well,
this surprises me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. The first hour of this film is a lot of setup. When our email in the preamble, we talked about Justin Peterson mentioned that this was Tarkovsky perhaps trying to like turn off people and clear them out of the theater so they'd get to the real movie, which is, I don't know. I don't know if
I don't believe.
I don't believe either.
I love that idea because it turns everyone off.
It turns I don't think anyone's saying, "Oh, it's such a brilliant piece of filmmaking that first hour." So you get like, I think the thing that drove me nuts the most is the driving scene with Burton as he's driving around future Tokyo, right?
I'm glad you mentioned it was Tokyo because there was no indication of why apart from the writing on the taxis. But also I'm pretty sure the steering wheel is on the wrong side. Because he had a steering wheel on the left, and New Zealand and Japan have a steering wheel on the right. So
okay,
I have no idea.
Yeah, I didn't really pick up on where they were from until I was reading, and I was like, sure, sounds good. But it's like supposed to be like futuristic Tokyo, but it's like 1972 Tokyo or whatever year they filmed it in. Like,
I personally, I love that scene, the driving.
I think part of it was it brings us so much attention to itself, and also the color of this film stock thing that's like kind of like plagues this entire film, that is like completely due to, I think, money and not artistic choice. Like there's the scenes where it just changes and you're just like, why did they change that? And you're like, oh yeah, because they had to, because that's all they had available to them. And you're like, okay.
I couldn't figure that out because I was like, wait, are they trying to symbolize it's nighttime, or is it a flashback when they do this? Or and then halfway through a flashback, it was the more blue grade film, and then it went to traditional black and white, and then it lost me. I was like, okay, I have no idea why they're doing this.
Yeah, it's completely arbitrary, and it's just like it has no rhyme or reason. So I don't know. It's kind of it's distracting to say the least. So yeah, reading. So then they go to space. He's just boom, he's in space.
Did anyone timestamp that? How long it took them to get to space?
It's like 20 minutes, isn't it?
Felt like
I don't have a real timestamp. I'm just guessing.
I feel like it's longer than 20 minutes.
Is it?
Yeah.
Maybe like 25?
I think more than that. But you're in space. I would say my timestamp for watching this, though, was about an hour and 5 minutes in.
Oh, that was the same point I fell asleep in this film, actually.
Oh, nice.
Oh, good. Good. My timestamp was 14 minutes when he's talking about slime. I thought it was really funny, and I was like, what is this? Because I wanted to get a screenshot, which, by the way, I'm trying to screenshot these things for the Instagram account, which is just blowing up, by the way. And I was trying to get it on my computer, and it wasn't loading. It was just buffering. I was like, oh, that's annoying. So I pulled it up on my phone, and I was like, oh, I can just scroll to the time I want. Awesome. I went to 14 minutes and 30 seconds where they're talking about slime. Screenshots are disabled on the phone app, which is frustrating. So, but on the computer, I'm not even kidding. I was messaging Jarrett today. I tried for about 40 minutes, and it would not load.
I had trouble with Criterion Channel with this one.
Yeah, like it plays from the start fine, but if you try to jump ahead, it loads forever. Like I left it on loading for 20 minutes and it never came. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's really shitty. I watched on Fire Stick and it played fine. But if you try to skip ahead, good fucking luck. Like you're either all in or nothing. You can't just jump ahead.
I think that's true with this movie, though.
If you're either all in or nothing.
Yeah. Okay.
You mentioned a friend had a certain problem when trying to, because I casted this from desktop to the screen.
Okay.
And then every so often it's like, you can't cast on an external monitor or something like that. All these bizarre rules on the Criterion channel.
It's the DRM crap. I've heard about some DRM stuff with that. It's, I don't know.
A lot of people are having that problem. Yep.
So, Tarkovsky, he's got some. Oh yeah, right. He's got some hot takes. Before I continue on with we're going through this plot. So 2001: A Space Odyssey. He really is not a fan. He thinks it's bogus and just preposterous.
Did he say that?
Yeah, he says these things.
Did he explain why, or is it just baseless claims like, nah, that movie sucks?
I'm sure that it's like more explained in some of his writings. He wrote a lot, but so this was like in some ways an anti-2001, and maybe there's some truth to this. But I guess like ultimately he viewed this film as a failure for what he was going for, and he thinks that he achieved what he was going for more with Stalker, for whatever that's worth.
Agreed.
Yeah.
What was he going for?
I don't like a spiritual
Russian existentialism.
Yeah, spiritual experience. So we get to space. He finds dead astronauts, one of my favorite visual tropes, I guess, in sci-fi. It's because film like could be like a space horror, like an Alien, an Event Horizon. You have Solaris in there too. And it's like there's a mystery of what's going on, but the two people who are left, they seem to be pretty nonplussed about this whole thing. They're kind of like, you'll figure it out right away, dude. And so there's like kind of like ghostly people, but they're actually not ghosts at all. They are manifestations from the planet, this Solaris planet that is just a giant body of water that is just, it's a super brain. Sure. Absolutely. There's nothing objectionable about this. But they've sent some radio waves down there, and the planet has responded in kind by scanning them back the way that it would. And it's created these proxies using their own memories of forms, idea forms or something like that, as a means to communicate, I guess. And each person responds differently depending on what their memory is to it. There's no really getting rid of these things, these guests. They just kind of are there, and even if they try to kill themselves, they come back because they're kind of like, they're a mishmash of this like alien intelligence with sort of this like problem of human memory in regards to this like non-technology experience. So yeah, you just kind of follow this Chris guy dealing with the visage of his like dead lover, who killed herself after their marriage relationship fell apart. And it's just kind of working through that initial stage. I found that, getting to what my thought about this movie, as the movie got on and the deeper you went into it, the more I liked it, I think. I thought I was more involved with it as it went on. Like that first hour, like I was kind of like, oh, Solaris, huh? And then kind of by the end, it's like each kind of situation kind of built up. Like there was sort of like a pull toward that conclusion, which is like a nice thing, because sometimes movies start off strong and then they finish limply. This I felt like kind of ramps up and gets better as it goes. So I mean, like you're along with the ride. You're watching Chris kind of just dealing with the other members of the crew that are still around. This spaceship is probably, it's an interesting design. It doesn't feel particularly sci-fi-ish or even like remotely accurate to how a ship would look at all. It's very much its own thing. Like particularly when we talk about the Soderbergh Solaris ship, which I think is just like completely bland and generic in like unnoteworthy. This actually really has a character to it. It's because it's not quite like Star Trek in like sort of this like blank kind of cheesy sort of way. It's got these like opulent rooms, like almost like you're on top of like this like a mansion. And like, what's that all
what
about?
I read that as is with it had a juxtaposition of their old personal belongings and the spaceship as well. So you saw the modern spaceship in the background, but then it looked like someone's personal library was set up, antiques, books, leather chairs, and stuff like that.
Yeah, the books is.
It felt lived in, especially compared to, like you said, the Soderbergh remake.
Well, yeah, like that main corridor, like the circular corridor, like the state, like how it's in complete ruin and just disrupted. Like I was like, felt like I was like watching, like I was reading like a manga or anime. Like just like there's like so many elements there that I think have influenced those illustrators watching it. Like this is their kind of frame of reference. I think sometimes when they're like wanting to design things, like you want to like draw things in sort of like this, like not realistic way, but kind of stylish sort of way, because you want to have people, you want people to actually interact with it. You don't want it to be super technical like a 2001 Space Odyssey, Living Space, which is again like it's like in that particular film it looks amazing, but like from a practical standpoint, like if you just want to have characters be able to walk around and do things instead of being hung up on like how would they really interact with space, it just bogs down, I think, the drama, I guess, if you want to cut that part out. So I don't know if that's something that like maybe Tarkovsky was like kind of having a stab at with. He's like, well, I don't really understand why you'd even bother doing that with 2001. It just seems like a technical thing. Like
I'm just thinking to Kubrick's the toilet in 2001, where if you read the instructions on the side, there's a whole page and they all make sense. Compared to here's a toilet, you just shit in it.
It's just like just like you would. You have a closet, you go and lay in bed and you talk for a really long time. That's what you do.
What beds look more uncomfortable, this or the remake?
Oh, I gotta mention plastic bed sheets. In who was the person in like earlier 1900s, whenever this thing started, like 60s, 70s, I don't know, that's not earlier, but like 50 years ago in sci-fi, when someone was like, you know what the bed sheets of the future are going to look like? They're going to be plastic, because the plastic is the future, man. Like, I don't know. Like in this one, it is a plastic shower curtain, and it's like, that looks uncomfortable. And in the remake, it's one of those like poofy goose down coats.
It looks so thin in the remake, though. You're like, that you can't be warm under that.
Yeah, it's like what like whose idea was these plastic sheets for beds? Like why? And then George Clooney's sleeping on that thing that's like a massage pillow. And it's just
well,
like
the rubber edges as well.
Oh, it's so gross, Jarrett. Why would you? It's so gross. These beds suck in both of these movies.
Mm-hmm.
Big time.
It's the future, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about the future, every future movie must have a video chat as well.
Oh, yeah.
So you know it's the future. And also, I love it. It's like you're watching a TV channel. You can't accept, you can't put the phone down or not. It's just, oh, by the way, he's talking to me now.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that the worst?
Yeah.
It's like you're just doing something. It just cuts
like,
in.
We're watching something. It's like, well, oh, shit, sorry. Yep. In the future, we don't say yes or no. We just accept it.
Yeah. I don't know what that is. Like, why? Why is this a thing? Like, it's become a staple. Just like plastic bed sheets. It's just a staple now. And it's like, why? Who thought that was a good idea? I don't know. I don't know, Jarrett. Keep talking.
So
I don't know.
I'll turn it over to you two. I think I like this movie more than both of you. With the caveat that like I completely understand why this movie is not for everybody, because it is Tarkovsky asks a lot for people. I think that the reputation of this film is greatly overstated. I don't like when you read like the accolades this gets, like this is like the greatest accomplishment of science fiction in history. You're just like, no, it's not though. Again, this is it asks a lot. But anyway, who wants to go first?
I would love to. I've got a lot to say.
I think Oliver should go for it. It is his right as a guest.
Yeah, exactly. And I had to listen to all your bloody internet movies and screw it up on my try. So
yeah, no, I told you it would happen. I don't mean to.
I love Tarkovsky, so I want to get that out the bed. I'm not some big Tarkovsky hater. Mm-hmm. I've seen this movie before, like you. This is my second time watching it. You could say third time because I did fall asleep in this movie.
Oh, is that some cat business going on?
I wish. It's simply too slow, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it is. That's a good point. It is an extremely slow-paced movie.
Languid paced.
Mm-hmm.
I know. So I watched it. Yeah, so this is the second time I watched it. The first time I watched it, I think I mentioned when I talked to you guys before the show that I was hoping I was going to like it more the second time. It was the first Tarkovsky film I've seen, and I didn't fully appreciate it back then. And I thought after I watched them all, like a listener said, Mirror is his favorite movie from him. I agree as well. You can see similar parallels in this movie with, I believe it's Mirror with one other, not Nostalgia, but the other one with the houses in the middle of the forest. He seems to be obsessed with. No, not
or the Mirror, Nostalgia. Oh,
what's the one where he burns the house at the end of it?
Andrei Rublev?
No, the Sacrifice.
The Sacrifice. Yeah. Same thing. That he seems to be obsessed with houses in the middle of the forest.
Right.
And so I hopefully after watching, I've seen all his films apart from the killer adaptations, whatever 3-piece Criterion movie we got later on. And I thought coming back into this, I'm going to appreciate it more. And I tried to love it, but I just got pissed off. I just found people would say something, and maybe it's lost in translation. I'd like to make a note: the Russian language in the credits. I love the look of the Russian language.
Oh God, aren't they beautiful?
Oh, yeah. It's awesome.
It's just so. It's like English but upside down, or the wrong way round, or X's and things like that. And then as it's spoken, I don't know.
It just looks cool.
It does. It is the coolest looking language. But then I got pissed off, and it may be lost in translation. Maybe I'm not understanding things a bit more, but I think people throw out these wild concepts like, what if life was this? And as an audience, you're expected to be like, whoa, what if? And it pissed me off, I think.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair point. It's like, I don't know, we make fun of it all the time, but it's that real, what if we're the real monsters type stuff. Yeah, like, exactly. What if this? And it's like, what if
this recreation of your wife is the real human and you're not a human? It's like, I was waiting for in all the reviews for my mind-blown moment, and it did not come.
Well, because at that point, like, I think it's just like, you're like, well, who cares? I don't know what Jarrett thinks.
So Roger Ebert's got a response here. So he wrote, and this is from his Great Movies review for Solaris, the films of Russian director Andrei Tarkovsky are more like environments than entertainments. It's often said they're too long, but that's missing the point. He uses length and depth to slow us down, to edge us out of the velocity of our lives, to enter a zone of reverie and meditation. When he allows a sequence to continue for what seems like an unreasonable length, we have a choice. We can be bored, or we can use the interlude as an opportunity to consolidate what has gone before and process it in terms of our own reflections. He continued, he consciously embodied the idea of a great filmmaker, making works that were uncompromisingly serious and ambitious with no regard whatever for audience tastes or box office success.
Just like Jodorowsky.
I don't like when people say consolidate in that certain sense. It seems weird. Anyway, talk about Jodorowsky.
No, I disagree with that we have a choice to be bored or not. I wanted not to be bored. I tried so hard. But like you said, even Jarrett, who seemed to enjoy the movie, that first 40 minutes was just horrendous.
It's a challenge. No, it's definitely a challenge. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, but sometimes challenges are more enjoyable than this. I don't know. And his other movies, he like I think you mentioned that he achieved it more in Stalker. I love Stalker, and I sort of got into that metaphysical, existential conversation. With this one, I found it forced. I didn't understand anything. And it's one of those movies, you're left with more questions. They won't answer any questions.
Well, Stalker is I think a flat out more beautiful looking movie though too. And there's something about like the duration of those shots that like I think works in this like hypnotic way. Cause that movie's like also, it's kind of boring. But like it's working in this completely different way. And it doesn't have like really kind of like crappy optical effects. Like the actual,
I was going to mention that.
The surface.
So you say they're crappy?
Yeah. I find that the optical look of the planet like never really wows me when I was watching it.
I thought you meant more not the optical effects of the surface, but there was some sort of thing he did. I'm not so technical, but it was out of focus or it maybe had a curve on the lens. But he was looking at something and then it would sort of open up and there'd be another character there. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's sort of
like in the actual.
Yeah, I do.
And the space station, when he was filming things, it felt like there was almost a curve on the lens. I don't know if that was to get the feel of the space station.
Sure.
And he would sort of, you're looking at a character and then the focus would change a little bit and behind him would be some midget running out of the door, which was...
Oh,
yeah.
I was wondering if RJ got a laugh. I was wondering if RJ got a laugh out of that.
I was waiting for someone to bring it up because it was like... That was definitely, it was a decision he made because
deliberate choice.
It was deliberate because like that is a common thing it happened in the book. It happens in the other interpretation or adaptation of this book. That Burton or whatever the weird Russian name I said earlier, Sartorius. They have like a kid in there with them, and in the book it's like a kid that's in there with them. But in this movie, it's like a midget, a little person, and it's such a deliberate thing. It's like, why would they choose to do that? Why would they change it from a kid to a midget little person? Was it because of filming things? But like they had a kid in this movie at one point, didn't they?
And the
remake
they did.
But this one they did too, didn't they? At like one point where it's like
at the start of the movie where he saw a kid and he was 4 foot tall.
Was it just like
4 meters tall?
Do you think they weren't allowed to use a real kid and that's what they did, or like,
Soviet
or
Russia,
was it just his choice?
Yeah,
pretty easily.
Pretty quickly, yeah, you could in Russia.
I thought it was a big laugh. It was sort of like he's like, "I won't let you come in." He's like, "Okay, I won't," and then sort of this midget runs out. He just throws him, back into the room. He's like, "Oh, by the way, do you realize life is not life, but death?" Oh,
did you? That blows your mind. Did you realize that people in midgets are people too? Yeah. I think that's what they're trying to say. I don't know. It's completely out of nowhere, and it's very bizarre because you're kind of like, what? And especially for me now, because I was like, it's like, so they did that on purpose, but why? What is he trying to say with that? What does that mean?
All the good reviews of this movie is the questions won't be answered, and usually I love that. Usually I really do love that.
Okay.
But it just pissed me off.
One thing I was listening to, they made a point of kind of talking about, like, they were really harshing on this movie, but like they're comparing how like this movie has all their characters talking out loud about the things that you should be thinking about rather than just making a movie about those things. And like, so it's like, oh, okay, it's like these characters are having the philosophical conversation out loud and filming it rather than like, hey, let's take these ideas and make a movie about those things. And there's like the difference there of like, you take a 2001 and you make a movie that's like about these ideas, but you don't have people saying, isn't it crazy how we went from bones to like spaceships? Like no one said like, yeah, there's like, it's not like that literal, but like,
I see what you mean. But we visually see it. In
but then you maybe don't even pick up on those relationships between things and juxtaposition until you've watched it a couple times. But this movie, everything's on the forefront. It's all on the surface. It's all very much like, this is what the movie's about. And like, I think that is like completely Tarkovsky's intent too. Like he is 100% like he is choosing to make a movie this way, and he's like, yeah, it's gonna be boring, but I think this is better filmmaking. And like, obviously, I mean, that's debatable. Like, but it's like, again, like,
is it?
Well, isn't it like? But it's like, well, what's the measurement, right? Like, what is the what is film? Like, it's like it should be entertaining. That's not necessarily a good basis. And like, well, we get to use box office as measure. It's like, well, no, we shouldn't be using that either. So it's like, again, it's debatable. But like, I think we can all agree that it's like, none of us really like watching movies like this for fun. Like, life just, you want to watch something new or like different or like entertaining. Like, that seems to be like a undercurrent, I think, with like watching a film like this. It is so completely the antithesis of what we watch movies like this for now. Like, it's just like, this movie does not fall into that, and you have to be like really trying hard to like let this movie win you over.
I think I'm picking up what you're laying down there, Jarrett. You're saying that you should be challenged by the things that you watch as entertainment.
So sometimes being challenged is okay.
I think I get what you're saying.
I like the idea, and I think you've explained why it pissed me off so much, was because, like you said, I like the visual questions. Like, I know it's unfair to keep comparing this to 2001. I'm glad he hates it, to be honest. No. When anyone explained what movie are you doing in this podcast you paid $50 to go on, I just say The Russian 2001.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he hates it, because, I mean, it's impossible. It's only, 2 years later? 2 or 3 years later?
It was 4, I think. Because I looked.
It was 68. 68 was 2001.
71.
So, yeah, depending
Solaris was 71.
But with 2001, all the questions, like that's the space baby at the end, which, I still don't particularly understand. Yep. It was a visual question, and like you say, in this movie, all the questions are questions spoken out loud, and maybe that's why it rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty silly, though. I mean, the space baby makes in total sense. Maybe that's a Canadian thing. I don't know. It's very literal. A space god had
space
a baby. Space baby. It's religious, Oliver. You wouldn't understand. It's a Catholic thing.
And a serious meaning I picked off of this film, and one that I think, once again, this is why the movie angered me, because the themes in other movies that I usually really love, like Memory, for example. But the biggest idea I got of this movie was, like, what's real is yourself or what you are perceiving me to be. And I would argue that it would be the perception of myself is more real than what I feel like I am. And that's what I feel like. Well, that's what I feel like with his ex-wife, his ex-wife, because she unfairly is what she isn't herself. She existed as his memory,
right?
And maybe he remembered it wrong or remembered the defects and stuff like that. And
it's one of those weird things where, like, Hari, like, she doesn't have a memory of how to open a door because he doesn't remember her opening a door. Why would you? And then she has this like psychotic episode, and it's like, what was that? And you get this kind of like janky special effects sequence.
I was a little bit pissed off at that, because I thought I finally got the movie. I was like, oh, she broke through the door and she's all cut up. That's probably how she died, And this freak accident. Oh no, she killed herself. Oh, I read that scene wrong. She just loves ripping open doors.
I think that's one thing that the book actually explains way, way better, where I'll get to that when I start, but like a big part of the book is the emphasis on how these are like the manifestations of their memories, but it's also based on all of their memory. So like one of the things he notices with the wife is she talks to him about people that he met after she died. So it's kind of like this, he knows that she's not real. He's like, well, how can he know like Chad? I met Chad after, or how could she know Chad? I met him after she died. And like their information and their entire being is based off of the memory and all the thoughts that the person has, but then it's also limited to what they perceive of that person. So like, I mean, I guess it's obvious because books kind of can get into those details a little bit more. Like there's more room to talk about that stuff and like elaborate on that instead of a 3-hour movie. But I do think that was one thing the book did a little bit better, where it kind of explains why certain things happen the way they do. Where in this, I don't think it's like bad. I think you can pick it out, but I think it's not as easily accessible where you're like, well, why does she do that if you don't like actually think about it? But I mean, as Jarrett pointed out, this is a movie that makes you think about it. It's not where are those movies that people always make fun of us for, say that we should stick to, like Back to the Future or something.
Lethal Weapon.
In Lethal Weapon.
I don't. You're including Jarrett in this conversation, RJ. I think you know for sure who they're talking about when they mention those kind of movies.
Yeah, they're talking about just Jarrett, not me. I'm including myself in that.
Exactly.
That's not fair. Yeah, just Jarrett.
Separate yourself, please.
Yeah.
Check yourself. Thanks, Oliver. Finally, someone understands.
Shut up, you guys. I don't even remember who was talking out of the two of you, and I think Oliver has more to say. But
mesh tops, I've mentioned before. Can we please just talk about them more?
Yeah.
Is that the future for humanity? Yellow mesh tops and harnesses around the groin.
We're wearing them right now. You can't tell because we have hoodies on because we live in Canada, but I got a mesh top underneath.
I do
my
not.
pants.
Yeah.
Hey, Jarrett, go along with the gag. It's a comic.
That's how when free flow comedy works. You have to basically accept the situation. And
just go with it.
So we're all wearing mesh tops.
Roll with it. We all got crop tops. They're all made of mesh.
One thing I'd like to mention, and me and my wife made up ideas about this based on absolutely no information whatsoever. Sure. Russians naturally or unnaturally are just insane cinematographers. From the silent era to, I don't know, past this, they're just, all their movies are shot incredibly. Why? And I decided that it was because everyone's like, in Soviet Russia, like this is the Russian school of cinematography, and they all studied the same thing. Mm-hmm. Is that why?
Alternatively, it's because they all have to fight for their survival, so the best naturally rise to the top.
Or is it because of this? They were so strong in a silent film where cinematography was key that they sort of learned from there.
Well,
That's a good point.
It was all centralized too, because like Mosh Film was just like, a wing of the Russian government, basically saying like, hey, you're making films, and so like you're going to get the best people who are learning all the technical stuff, and they have access to every film, and they're studying them because you are specialized in making films look great. Because like if you look back at the Russian films that we've covered on the Creeps so far, they're like all visually just amazing films.
There was only one that was not as good. I was trying to quickly bring it up like you guys, super smooth. So
no, we always just stop and then edit it together to make it sound like we're cool.
But there was a Russian war movie that was the only one so far.
Alexander the Great? Or not the Great, but...
Not Lucy Watch Trains, that was terrible. There was one... Cranes are flying, maybe.
The cranes are flying. That movie looked that was that one was.
Ballet of the Soldier. Sorry, that was it. That was the only Russian film I thought that didn't have. It was fantastic, but didn't have that classic cinematography.
Well, our boy here, from Solaris, Vadim Yusov, he went to the Gerasimov Institute of Cinematography.
Yeah, see, that's what I was. Well, me and my wife decided they all went to that one,
and they have
Soviet school.
Yeah, there is like a block of about 40 names under notable alumni.
It's surely that famous shot of the baby carriage going down the stairs. What movie am I thinking of?
Well, the school was established in 1919. So I imagine that somewhere along the line, maybe like Man with the Movie Camera was coming out.
Oh,
of
Battleship.
there.
Yeah, and Battleship.
Potemkin.
Yeah.
Potemkin.
This
Potemkin.
and I mean, this guy did a lot of Tarkovsky's film. I think up to this one, I believe he didn't go further than this. We're looking at
the internet for people.
Yeah.
Hey, let me internet that for you, Jarrett, and then add the sound effect right here. Edit this so it's like.
Yeah. Solaris.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, Solaris was his last one.
Yeah, I think that's what this podcast is missing is sound effects. So I'm hoping.
Sorry.
Well, yeah. I mean, if this guy who edits the movies wasn't so lazy, it's like it's not like he does anything else. He just shows up. He just talks about movies for 2 hours, and that's all he does for a week. Maybe he'll post on Instagram once in a week. Like, he doesn't do anything for the show. Just, come on.
I think, and also over-edited audio, like Solaris. Have you ever heard of podcasts like that? Horrendous.
I've never heard a podcast. Is that a real thing, podcasts do?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Jarrett, have you not heard it before?
No.
We don't listen to podcasts.
I've heard things, I guess. One. Yeah. Hey, RJ.
What?
Tell us about the book that Stanislav wrote, and because he's not a fan of this movie.
That I assumed was a piss take.
I have
he
some
saw it was better than the book. I was like, no, he didn't read the book.
Yeah, I got some fun things to say about the book and Stanislav Lem. So the book, I audiobooked it over the last 3-4 weeks, walking to work the last couple days. Last couple weeks. The book is very different. The best way I could describe it is do you guys know Contact by Carl Sagan?
Sure.
I hate it.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, the movie sucks, but the book Contact is very good because Carl Sagan was a real smart guy and he knew what he was talking about. Stanislav Lem, I think, was a smart guy also. He wasn't a scientist like Carl Sagan was, but the book is a lot more emphasis on the science, not even the science, but certain aspects of what's going on and more about the nature of the endeavor itself and less about the people. So the book is a lot more about it's kind of like man versus nature, to be honest, because it starts out and it is our main man Calvin, and the book starts out when he arrives at the Solaris base. There's nothing before, nothing after. The entire book is 100% on the space station. So he arrives there, it plays out, and then it ends on the station as well. And a lot of what it is just scientists talking about what is happening, but it's not the physics part, in the in some of these movies where they're well, it's neutrinos and things like that. It's more it's more.
That's not the remake. No, it was the original.
That was the original.
I think it's the original, and then in the remake, it's subatomic particles. It's the same old horse shit.
Yeah.
But the book is more about. It's not about that. It's more okay, so something's happening. There's a physics and chemistry answer to it. Whatever. What are we going to do now to solve this? So it's more about how do we defeat this gigantic living ooze? And the one thing I really like, because I think a lot of people know I'm a fan of aliens, and I actually really like Stanislav Lem's approach to this, where it's kind of I saw a thing where he was kind of going on about how he made the entire planet the living organism because he's I didn't want to make he said he wanted to make a non-anthropomorphic version of an alien because he's it's too easy to do that, to just have a human character that represents an alien. He's I wanted something totally different. He's so I made the entire planet a fucking alien. It was he's and then I wanted to see what happened there. So that book is way, way, way more about what the planet itself is and how all the scientists study it. Because in that one, Calvin is a scientist. He knows all about Solaris, and it's about how for years and years they've been trying to study this thing, and it's only in the recent years that they've actually kind of cracked, or not even cracked. Things have been happening because they've increased what they're doing to it. So I really like that. I liked the book quite a bit. Is it all-time banger? No, there were some boring parts in it, especially in the audiobook format, where there were some times where I was just walking and I'd walk for like 10 minutes and I would have to stop it and be like, I don't even know what they've been talking about for 10 minutes. I wasn't listening at all.
You're explaining how I listen to this podcast right now.
Yeah, exactly. You don't listen at all. And then you're like, I'll go back. And then you listen to it again. You're like, I didn't hear what that meant. I'll go back. But I actually like the book quite a bit. Just because I like those themes where what they were trying to say with it. And I think that translates to certain elements of this movie where I've mentioned before, I really like memory type stuff, where that's why I liked Wild Strawberries a lot. That's what my master's was in, was all about memory. And I like this movie because it's about memory ghosts, basically. Like, this movie is just a big ghost story, but it's also about aliens. So these are things that I love because it's about ghosts and it's about aliens. And I was like, oh yeah, it's a slam dunk for me in theory. So I really like that. And I think actually what kind of hurt me on this movie was listening to the book right before, because I listened to the book and I had seen the Steven Soderbergh remake when it came out in like 2003 or 4, whatever it was. So I knew like the rough lines of the story, but I didn't remember it completely. So I knew it a little bit, but I listened to the book and then I watched the movie. And then watching the movie, I was like, oh, it's like they're going for this way different approach where they're really emphasizing his life on Earth and then his connection to these people. And I was like, I get that because it's kind of like humanizing the story a little bit. But at the same time, I kind of liked the cold, calculated, like, science aspect of it. And that's, I don't know, that's just me. Like, I can see a lot of other people being turned off by that. But like watching this movie, I feel like I went into it with an idea of what it was going to be like because of the book. And then the fact that it didn't kind of hit that, it made me like it less. And Tarkovsky was saying that because Stanislav Lem didn't like the movie, and Tarkovsky was like, well, he just wanted a carbon copy of his book. Like, he was a real prick.
Just like Stephen King.
And I get that too, where it's like, yeah, I understand. Like, Tarkovsky was like, I want to make my own thing. I want to have plastic bed sheets. I want to have slime. I want to have all this other shit in there. And it's like, yeah, I get that. That's cool. So I'm not like, I don't have negative thoughts on the movie because it strayed away from the book. I think I just actually liked the approach that the book took more than the movie did, where the movie made it more about the people's connections to each other, where the book was more like, what are we going to do about this as a whole, because we all need to kind of sort this out.
Well, yeah, when I was reading the Wikipedia summary of the book before we were recording, the thing that I was like, oh, that actually does sound like a more interesting version of this same story, was the idea that, like, it's also about, like, this futility of, like, ever being able to understand an alien intelligence. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, like, which is like, they don't, that's like not touched upon really here in a direct way, I don't think.
No, Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, then I was just going to say as well, on one of the interviews I was watching on the special features for this was like the reception that like this film had in Poland, and it was like kind of a period piece, like seven. Mm-hmm. It's like a 70s little clip. It's like 4 minutes long, and like how they're like complaining because it's like, so it's a Polish book, and like obviously it's like they're having some umbrage with like Russian like baggage with like they're like with its spirituality and like the water pouring down on everybody. It's obviously just like the Holy Ghost. And I'm like okay, like I have no
like, what are you talking about?
I have no idea what they're talking about, but it's like, well, I'm not from that culture, so I'm like, I don't even see what they're talking about. Like my issue is that like, this film is very long and like that's like more my issue, but like there's like a completely different reading where it's like if you're really invested in the book and like the science of it and the technical kind of like intellectual stuff, Tarkovsky, he's like trying to make this like spiritual film that like I don't really get that. I don't see that aspect of it at all. I see it kind of as more of like this like aesthetic kind of film, like where I'm like really into those browns of Hari's outfit. Like I love that.
You can't handle the brown.
Why couldn't she unlace the outfit? Did anyone explain that? What the fuck was that about?
She didn't know how to use.
She doesn't know how to.
Or was it just because he cut it off the first time?
He has no.
The second time she had to try to cut it off.
She has no memory of
how to take it off.
Yeah, right. That's why she couldn't open the door. It's kind of the same kind of thing, and like the whole idea
this guy had no memory of taking it off either. Chris.
Yeah, because he doesn't know how to take off a woman's dress. He's like, I don't know, and then like just like all those little details of like her like looking in the mirror and being like, oh hey, that's me. Who's this woman in the photograph? Like she has no memory. She only has the memory of what she's been given. There's like these like interesting elements to the film that like I don't know that these are the things I like about it. But I mean, like I said, I think it's really easy. Because of the way the film was made, to dismiss it, especially now. Like movies like this just don't get made, and or if they are, people aren't watching them. Like I think those like Bell Tar movies, like Satin Tango, Bell Tar.
Have you seen Annihilation?
Well, I was going to say, like, so the one movie that came to mind is kind of like falls into like this middle ground is Arrival, which is like it's somewhere between like so Kubrick I'd say is like is a pretty much a success on the front of these types of films, and then you have like an Arrival which people really love. I am not a fan of that film because to me
I'm an Arrival fan.
Yeah, I'm just like I find the
most
film.
Most people are.
Yeah, I'm.
Oh, here we go.
Here I go.
Most people are. So
most people are. Yeah.
It's just one of those movies that like it just does little things. Like it feels like a Christopher Nolan knockoff of a movie. I mean, in like the worst ways, and you're just like, ugh. I don't know. And it's like Denis Villeneuve is like not that type of director either. But this film, it just has like weird like mainstream sort of concessions that like I think Tarkovsky would absolutely hate, and he would never make in his movie. But most people are going to be probably reaching for Arrival before they're reaching for Solaris, and like,
probably.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't think that's like not to be dismissive of the one
not
movie
a dig.
ever, but it's like on these movies are on the spectrum and like how you can handle this material. I guess is what
we're all
thinking.
on the spectrum.
That's right.
We're all on the spectrum of life.
I want to make it clear I didn't dislike Solaris.
Yeah,
I find it easier to say things about movies I dislike though.
Sure.
So I thought I'd come in as devil's advocate.
Okay.
It's even better, but I actually like what you were saying, Oliver, is a lot of the stuff that I think too, and I haven't gotten to that yet. But like I agree with Jarrett where he's talking about the sense of the alien thing. Like the book is mostly about it's like human arrogance, where it's like, well, we can figure this thing out, and then it's like, no, this is like a giant living being, and you have no idea what you're talking about, and they're like, no, we got it, like. We're pretty smart. We made spaceships. Like, we know what we're doing. And then it's like, no, this is a huge brain, and it's going to, like, throw a bunch of shit at you. It's like, it probes your mind. It makes a artifact of your memory. And it's like, how are you going to deal with this now? And it's just, like, this living thing. It's like, it's kind of just like, it's your deal, bud. Like, you figure it out.
Did it explain why the whole crew went crazy? Because I still haven't fully...
So in the book, at least, it was mostly just because, and that's another thing that's not emphasized or even brought up in either of these two. It's brought up in one line in the remake, but it's kind of like in the book, there is a huge emphasis about like the people who show up, like the visitor or the guests, are people who in their mind they wronged in some way. So the main character, he feels like guilty because he thinks the wife killed herself because of him. In all the other two characters, their guests are equal things where it's just like, I did something really bad to that person. Because the way it's presented in the book, where it's like they're talking to Calvin, they're like, who was your guest? And he was like, oh, it was a lady I knew one time. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, you just knew this lady? That's not all it is, surely. And he's like, no, that's all it was. And then the guy's like, okay, well, I know you're lying because all of the things that happened here. And then eventually later he's like, well, I feel like responsible for her killing herself. And he's like, yeah, I knew. He's like, because they only bring people back that like you have a personal thing with, where it's not just like, oh, I love that person. It was my kid. It was like you actually feel responsible for something that happened to them.
That makes more sense because I read it as sort of all these people like were luckily enough, or not lucky, but they all sort of had tragic, they had tragic people they could bring back. And I was like, what's the chances everyone on the ship, or maybe everyone that survived, oh, my wife killed herself. I have a midget son, you know?
Yeah. Well, and see, that's the thing where in the movie, it's like kind of hilarious. But in the book, it's way more subtle where I think one of the characters like Snout, where it's just like, I think after Calvin like figures it out, he's like, well, what was your deal then? And he's like, it was just some guy I was really fucking shitty to. And he's like, I feel bad about it. It's not like some midget son or like
I like that so much more because I think that's a memory that a lot of people have, or personally I do. You think, you know, maybe late at night trying to go to bed, oh, I remember that guy I was real shitty to.
Yeah.
You know, I wish I didn't say that. And I think you mentioned a movie a long time ago where hell was represented as like those shitty memories.
As above, so below, I think.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but like that, that makes much more sense to me.
That movie is good because it's like this cyclical thing where it's just like, oh, remember all that bad stuff that happened to you? Yeah. We're gonna do that over and over again, and that's your own personal hell. That's why I like that so much. But yeah, in the book, that's kind of what it was like. It's like the ghosts that come back are people. They seem to
pick out people that's gonna fuck with you the most.
Basically. The most, yeah. It's not gonna bring back like some guy that was your friend because you'd be like, oh, sick. What's up, buddy? Let's go for some cold ones for the boys.
Do you think like everyone you bring back, like his ex-wife, and he perceived her to be sort of manic suicidal? Personally, if this planet was bringing stuff back to you, is your perceptions of people worse than what they are in real life?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're always going to be more on the negative side.
Yeah, there's like that's a real thing, right? Negativity bias. Like usually, if you look up when you look up information about somebody you're looking up on Wikipedia, most people beeline. Is there a controversies page? Like, is there information about like
controversies?
Yeah. And then and it's like, oh, these are all the bad things they've done. I shouldn't like them now. Like that's what people do. So it's like, yeah, usually when you think about people, you're going to like idealize them, but there's always going to be that lingering negativity that like probably like infects every other facet of somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we brought back our mums, wouldn't be like, oh, she was so great at this and that. We'd be like, oh, remember when she made us do this or that, or she was a real bitch at those times.
Well, it's like kind of like the whole like weird foundation of like Italian Catholic guilt of like the guilt, the mother horror complex.
That's my area.
Well, you're a Hungarian Catholic, so I don't know what that is. Yeah.
But I still got that Catholic guilt, baby.
Well, we know.
Did you guys find any of the characters interesting in this movie? I was trying to do the classic look at bad reviews and get people to confirm my own reviews on the movie.
Yeah.
The characters aren't that interesting.
They're not, are they?
Not really.
No.
They're just kind of there.
And this movie's more of a character study than, like you said, a study on the planet or.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's exactly what I was trying to say. Whereas, like, I think the book is a lot more about the people dealing with the circumstance or the situation that's happening. The movie is more about the people dealing with each other. But the book actually, you learn a lot more about the characters through how they're dealing with the situation. Which, again, it's like I said, books have a lot more room to breathe, where you can kind of like pace these things out and you can like learn a little bit more about certain characters as the book progresses. But like in that thing, it's like, yeah, I knew exactly who Sartorius and Snout were because of how they handled situations.
Yeah. Did it explain who they brought up? Because I don't remember correctly. I know in the remake, a woman brings up her son. But in the original, I don't remember them mentioning people that they visited. All I've got the memory of is the midget, and I can't get
one of them is well, see, that's what I mean. So in the book, it's Sartorius, who has the midget in the movie, but it's like in the book, it's their son, and then the other character Snout. It was like I think he was the one where it was just like he's like, yeah, it was just some guy that was really fucking shitty too, and you're just like, all right,
because we don't see that in the movie, right?
No.
It's mostly just Chris.
Yeah. No, you don't see that at all. And then even in the remake, it's even more frustrating where it's like, it was a clone of yourself. You're your own worst enemy. And you're just
I'm not going to lie. I kind of enjoyed the twist a little bit in the remake.
Okay. Well, I have some stuff to say about that too.
Okay. So,
before we move on to the remake.
My last comment, I said the sentient ooze in Solaris is less than Ghostbusters 2 Sentient Ooze, because I think the Sentient Ooze in this is kind of boring, but in like Ghostbusters 2 it had like a personality and it had like feelings. Never mind, do whatever you want to do, go to the remake or whatever. I just wanted to get that out before you moved on.
Also horses as well.
Oh, that was my first comment. I said, horses.
Wow.
Is Tarkovsky going to push another one of these horses?
There was a
off
horse
fucking
picture on the spaceship. I saw that, but then I stopped looking.
There were a couple horses through this thing, and I was really scared because I was like, I know how they are in Russia. They're just pushing horses off of fucking buildings left and right.
Yeah. Before we bridge over, my last comment there would be the weird connection I made between this and Hopscotch last week was that both these films have compositing of things floating on a body of water, because there's the bit where the plane crashes in the ocean and it's just you get the dodgy compositing of wreckage there, and then you also get and then in the final shot, of course, of the film where he just accepts his fate and he's gonna go hang out and live on the planet.
Why not, man?
And people are like, oh, that ending is so. What happened? So we all saw what happened. He's on the freaking planet.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
There's nothing confusing. Yeah. We'll put out a YouTube on the Criterion Creeps YouTube page where it's just like ending of Solaris explained, and it'll be a 5-second video of Jarrett, and it's just
he's on the planet.
He's on the planet.
He's on the planet.
It's not complicated.
You know what's a better ending? Lucio Fulci's The Beyond. Like that is a far more like impactful ending than that of Solaris. So smoke that, Tarkovsky. So none of us watched the 1968 television film Solaris, but all three of us did watch Steven Soderbergh's 2002 Solaris, starring George Clooney.
Oliver Granger did some heavy lifting. He even watched the remake. That's not customary for. Well, I guess. We've only had one other guest, and there was no remakes of those movies. So
I was back in the old days where I was hoping you'd go back to the times where you'd view all the remakes, or maybe I thought it'd be funny. I should have just watched the remake and then came on this and then said, "Oh shit, I watched the wrong movie again."
I watched the wrong movie again.
Son of a bitch.
It's been brought up that the main. I mean, you can. I don't know if you want to go through the plot of the remake, but the big thing you brought out is, holy crap, the spaceship is bland. It's so of its time. Silver everywhere.
Blue and silver and claustrophobic. So I'm just going to say, I don't like this movie at all. I think even at like 99 minutes, this thing feels somehow just as long. It felt like 165 minutes to me. George Clooney, not one of his best outings. Usually I have no problems with the Cloon, but here he just was like his face was always like standing in doorways and like looking at something and reacting, and like it just like seemed so flat. I don't know. And other things I'll just get out there. So Soderbergh,
ICP.
He shot this film and edited it himself, but under aliases. So this was like James Cameron's dream project, which is actually kind of hilarious, because you think about what his Solaris would have been if he had put the time into it, because he's like into water, and you're like, oh, there would have been a scene where they go into Solaris, like, but it could actually be an
Maybe that would have been cool.
It could have been cool. I mean, but anyway, so that never was going to happen. So it kind of got handed off to Soderbergh. This was his follow up to Traffic, I think, and I don't know.
Oh, that's a movie. There we go. There's the answer to that question.
Oh, earlier,
you guys were sort of
you
guys were like, no, you went hot on it. That color grading of that movie ruined it. All right, moving on. There we go. There's the answer.
Yes. So
for sure.
This movie though, man, I just was not into it. Just especially like I watched the movies a day apart, just to have a little bit of a separation. And I just was bored out of my mind. Nothing it was doing like was more interesting. Just I don't know. Everything about it drove me more crazy, because even visually there was nothing to look at. I don't know. I have not much to say about it. I think this movie kind of sucks.
I have some stuff to say about it, but I want to hear what Oliver.
All right, I'll go through my notes, and then you can talk about how much you hate George Clooney. The main thing is that I
hate him. I have some things to say, but I'll get there.
Now, I can't remember which character he was supposed to be, but the chewing gum asshole I've written down. He listened to Insane Clown Posse. So I thought that was fun.
He's supposed to be Snout.
Oh, is that Snout? Yeah, so
he's supposed to be, but that chewing, I've never seen a more annoying character in cinema history than the way this guy fucking chews gum. It's unbelievable. There
are other things that fuck me off, but I think in a realistic way, because he repeats the same thing over and over again, which similar to maybe, I don't know, if I re-listen to this podcast, I'll probably find out I keep saying yeah, nah, or something like that. But he keeps saying yeah, you know, when he explains something, I don't know, remember he's like yeah, and he sort of
it's hand movements. Yeah,
he does the same,
he motions his finger
question,
forward and forward.
He answers the same question the same way every time.
Do you guys remember him from Lost? Because he was Faraday on that show, but that's like the only thing.
He was good in that show.
Yeah, he was good in that, but this.
Actually, I've got this note for both movies. If a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound? I feel like there's a theme for both of these movies.
I think
observation, for example.
If that guy's chewing gum in the world,
if some asshole chews gum and listens to ICP, does anyone give a shit about this movie?
Probably not.
I thought the line of questioning when she first appeared was really odd. It was like, do you remember me? How did we get there? What was your last memory? I was like, I don't know if that's the first thing I'd ask.
You're skipping a few beats here, buddy.
Yeah. Let's do the as the Russians do and get it on first. And way more flashbacks in this movie. Half the movie was probably in flashback, and I found most of the flashbacks were filmed as if someone was watching them. And there was actually there was literally blinking in the flashbacks. I don't know if you remember. It went black, and then so it was that us. Was it the planet viewing the memories and just physically watching?
Probably that's what he meant, but
try to explain. I did appreciate that it didn't do what other remakes, especially American remakes, do, and just over-explain everything a little. Like, it may have explained a lot more, but I don't think it ever got to the point where it over-explained.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. Yeah. Do you have anything else to say, Oliver, about this remake?
I think that's it.
All right, I got some things to say about this remake. So here's my point. Here's my case for Solaris. Case for, against, whatever. I own this on DVD, Jared.
Me too. The reason I own it is because I was collecting the Cinema F movies. This is a
Cinema Score F.
Yep.
So I'll just start and say, when this movie came out, I was actually pretty into it. I don't remember when it came out. What was it, like 2008 or something like that?
2002.
2002. So I was 12, and I thought this movie was awesome. And I was like, whoa, this movie's so crazy, man. I was like, I love this thing. It's so, like, edgy and, like, wild. I haven't watched it since 2002. I remember I tried one time when I was like 16, 17, and I fell asleep. But I think this really stands out, where Steven Soderbergh said he didn't intend Solaris to be a remake of Tarkovsky's film, but rather a new version of Stanislav Lem's novel. Counter to that, Stanislav Lem said, "To my best knowledge, the book was not dedicated to erotic problems of people in outer space. As Solaris's author, I shall allow myself to repeat that I only wanted to create a vision of a human encounter with something that certainly exists, in a mighty manner perhaps, but cannot be reduced to human concepts, ideas, or images. This is why my book was entitled Solaris, and not Love in Outer Space." So these were his statements. He very openly said that he never watched the remake made by Steven Soderbergh, but he heard about it from some people.
Sounds like Alan Moore talking about all his films.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I won't watch it, but I know a guy who saw it, and he told me what it was like. So this is my opinion. I think that is hilarious. But at the same time, I think he kind of has a point where this, like, the remake is certainly just a remake of the movie and not the book, because I don't know what Steven Soderbergh very clearly never read the book, because this movie is about the relationship of the two people, and like that's fine that they wanted to do something a little different, but at the same time, the reason I think I like the book more than Tarkovsky's Solaris is because it focused more on what was happening instead of person to person, where Tarkovsky was person to person. And then this one is relationship person to person, which is even more in depth, where this movie's 90 minutes long. 40 minutes of this movie is flashbacks to Earth. And then you have really heavy-handed scenes. It's like, does God exist? And you're like, who gives a shit? Like, what does this have to do with anything in this movie?
That conversation was the worst. But only for the to be honest, for his wife, you know, apart from the chronic atheist, I'm on their side. But like, when she's like, how do you explain consciousness? Like, mathematical probability. She's like, no, I'm leaving this party.
Well, like there's that too, but at the same time, for me, religious perspective aside, atheist, religious, who gives a shit? Doesn't matter, because nothing matters. But in that scene, this whole movie, George Clooney is such a fucking asshole, because it's like his wife is like, yeah, I think there's something out there, and he's like, do you realize how fucking dumb you sound right now, you stupid clumsy bitch? He's like, I'm going to tell you right now in front of all these people why you're such an idiot.
That was
and
some chronic mansplaining, right?
Yeah, that's that entire scene. And you're just like, whoa. You're like, am I supposed to sympathize with George Clooney in this? Or like, I don't get it. So I was really weirded out by this. Apparently, Daniel Day-Lewis was supposed to star in this thing.
Yeah. And
then dropped out because of scheduling conflicts. But I think he was just like, nah. I don't want to do that. So George Clooney came in. George Clooney 100% has a butt double in this movie. 100%.
Oh, shit, that was a note. I don't know if I ended up writing it down or just thinking it the whole movie, but Jesus Christ, his butt.
He shows his butt several times. I think it's 3. There's one where it's very clearly it is him. He's just like lying on bed. Yeah. They've just been intimate in a sexual way, Jarrett. And he just happened to make himself a little bowl of ramen noodles, like a little itchy dad. He's just like, you know what? We're just still naked. Whatever. I'm going to make some noodles. You know, we're so cash, whatever. And that's very clearly his butt. But there's a scene earlier where they're like standing up and they're making out and they're both naked. And it's like, what are you doing? Why are you naked, standing up, making out by a wall? Like, in what situation did this happen and this occur? But then also, like, his back is so fucking muscular. You're just like, whoa, George Clooney is ripped. But then in the next scene, you see his arms and you're like, wait a minute, George Clooney is not ripped. You're like, what was that earlier scene? Is he like, that was a body double for sure. And you're like, yeah, that was a body double for sure. I have no problems with George Clooney. Let me just say that up front. I think it's really nice that he has a potbelly pig that's his best friend. That's awesome. I fully endorse that. But this movie, I was kind of like, what are you doing, George? Because there's some of the delivery of his things. You're just like, ooh. Like when he wakes up and the girl's in the bed and he's like, oh, God damn it. And he goes
slaps
on the wall. Head. Yeah, he's like, oh, what's going on here, boys? And it's just like, ooh. Again, John Lovett's acting. So, I don't know, Jarrett and Oliver. George Clooney is fine. I think this movie is not great. I liked it when I was a little kid. So that's my hot take, Jarrett, on Solaris 2002.
Outstanding.
Yep. I don't know if you guys have anything else to say or anything about either George Clooney's Solaris or the other Solaris, but
how about that Cliff Martinez score, huh?
I did appreciate some music in the fucking film. That's
yeah, that's one thing.
I was listening to watching the original Solaris, and there were cicadas chirping.
Yeah,
and I had to mute the movie to realize they were actual cicadas outside. There's no bloody sound in this movie. So I did appreciate some music, that's for sure.
Yeah, that definitely, music is so powerful. Like, it really makes things even slower when it's not there. Like, and you put music to anything and it just changes it. Like, it's pretty magical. And it's a tool that should be used well. But when it's not there at all and you're making a slow film, oh boy. Oh boy.
Luckily it screened out all those movie haters and only got the real cinemaphiles to watch it, right?
Yeah, and it's like, all right, guys,
classic.
Now you can come into the secret clubhouse and watch the real movie. Now that the real Melvins are gone.
Total Melvins.
There was one movie, I don't know, actually, maybe that was a disappointment from the podcast. I don't know if you ended up watching it. The French movie about the people transporting nitroglycerin or whatever in the trucks.
Wages of Fear.
There was the remake, Sorcerer.
Yeah.
By William Friedkin.
I think 40 minutes of that movie were in French with subtitles, and apparently, like, that movie bombed because of it, because people were just leaving the cinema.
And I think it also came out, like, whatever it was, this, like, a week after Star Wars or something.
That's right, as well.
Yeah.
But, like, they had to have signs outside the theater saying, "Don't worry, only 40 minutes of this." So maybe that before, so don't worry, only 40 minutes of this is shit. Yeah. Then there's a 20-minute scene of Japan tunnels. Yeah. Then it gets good. Don't worry, guys.
Then we get to space.
It sounds like when Jarrett went to Dreamcatcher.
Yup.
Is that refreshing though when he got to space and you're like, holy shit, it's 5 minutes in the movie, he's in space.
Yeah. But it's like, oh, look at all these classy shots of George Clooney walking around like an urban environment. Aren't these like lovely shots? And then you get to space and you're just like, oh, it's a generic spaceship. Yeah,
you get to space fast, but the entire movie is flashbacks to Earth.
Yeah, I thought there was way too many.
Yeah. Well, folks, we need to talk about who hates Solaris.
Some people.
Some people. All right, RJ, you ready?
I'm always ready.
Excellent.
Fuck. Let's roll.
I've been cherry picking here. Half star, because a lot of these people are going to say the exact same thing.
It's boring.
By Lane 21. I don't know a damn thing that happened in this movie, but I know that boring as fuck.
Okay, wait. What was the person's name?
By Lane.
I was always wondering that. So I was wondering if RJ was pre-prepared before you did the sequence.
No,
he had
okay.
to quickly search them up.
I do have to quickly search them up. I'm just on the page. Bylane 21?
Bylane. BYLAIN 21.
I'm waiting to see this live where RJ will say, they hated this. Oh, and they hated this one movie I was nostalgic for in childhood. Well, that's not a 1-star movie. Hook's not a 1-star movie.
Hook isn't a 1-star movie. I agree with
2 hours long. I haven't watched it since a kid, but that seems crazy.
Did you say 1 star, Jared?
Half star.
A half star. Bylane 121?
Bylane 21.
This has never happened. I can't find this. These are my half
star. The remake or the original?
The original. So I have, for half star reviews, I have Pelly Joint, Bald Racist, Lane.
That's probably Lane. Look at Lane.
Okay, so is it? I don't know a damn thing about this movie.
Yes.
Okay, well, what were you talking about? Bylane.
Lane.
The hell are you talking about? Okay, favorite films include Us, which is a movie that we did not like at all. Suspiria. Okay. Crazy Rich Asians. Brave. See, I'm all out of whack now because I had no intro here.
Was that Suspiria original or remake?
Yeah, that was the original one, but we got Lady Bird, we got The Last Jedi, we got Halloween Town 1 and 2, which I think are fine movies, actually. But there's also The Big Sick and Baby Driver, which are not good. But their half stars are Solaris, Bruno, Say It Isn't So with Heather Graham, which I think that movie is okay, to be honest. Well, very bizarre. Okay, let's move on to the next review, Jarrett.
Jasper 21? Or sorry, just Jasper.
21 is the date.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's why I got the Bylane.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
No. What happened? This is a weird thing that I think in the copy and pasting, it did some weird compressing that it's never done before. So Jasper, 1 star. This film is intended to be a study of humanity, but the only method for doing so is to do a character study. I guess we're feeling uncomfortable piles of sludge running around in a useless space station. Casper Noah's climax made me understand 15 characters more in the space of 5 minutes than this did with 1 in 2 hours and 46 minutes.
I mean,
I just shitted that because of Casper Noah.
No, yeah, I saw that when trying to
Casper Noah?
make myself feel better myself, and I was like, oh, he agrees with me. Oh, he brought up that director.
Yeah.
This person doesn't have like horrible taste, to be honest. Like they only have 8 5-star films and a lot of Daniel Day-Lewis stuff. My Neighbor Totoro, Battle Royale, which is fine. They just gave Beautiful Boy 1 star, and in their review, I need to go into drug rehabilitation after watching this shit show of a movie. Timothy Chalamet pretending to be high should become a meme, though. And it's like, that's pretty fun. But they gave Paddington 2 3.5, and it's like, excuse me. Both of those Paddington movies are 5-star affairs. Very clearly.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
L_H, 1 star. I really love watching this movie from the bottom middle of the screen.
I didn't get that.
I don't either.
Do
you guys want to hear something?
Putting it on the side and doing something else at the same time?
I don't know.
Oliver, I have something that might rattle you to the bone.
Here we go.
L_H_. They had created their account in May of 2018. They have one film logged and rated, and it's Solaris. And that is their only score.
Huh.
That's their only review, only rating. So I don't know what that account is, but they created a Letterboxd account specifically to make a bad review of Solaris.
I could imagine people doing that if you go to film school, you keep hearing and hearing about it. You finally watch it. You're like, no, that's it.
Like, fuck this
I'm going
thing.
to review bomb this fucker.
Yeah.
Finally, A General, 1 star. I am deeply irritated by this event. Having sat through Solaris is like having something improbable and heroic.
A General?
Yeah. See,
God damn it! What are you bouncing around so much here?
There's more questions than the Solaris itself.
See, one of the things when I was looking at these, it was translating into English, so some of these might have been translated from Funny Talk.
It's possible. So I found A General. Their favorite movies include Rocky Horror Picture Show, Alien, and then Creep, not approved, The Night Porter. Not very good, you guys. Not very good at all. Their half stars are like Sex and the City movies. Like, who gives a shit? 1-star movies, also who gives a shit? Let's go to those 5-star films, Jarrett. Evil Dead 2, not my cup of tea. I know other people really like that. Whatever. We also have Necromantic. Ew. American Mary. That's gross. What else we got?
That was one of the one non-David Cronenberg movies I saw from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Which it didn't
American Mary.
Yeah, that was a Canadian film, right?
Yes, the Soska twins.
Yeah, loosely Canadian. I don't know. This person's opinions suck. They got all these movies in here, Jarrett. Near Dark 5 stars. Why do people like Near Dark so much?
Just because it's got your least favorite actor, who I like to go on the show and say I loved him in Aliens.
I would love to have him on the show.
You'd love to have Bill Paxton on the show?
On the show, I don't know, but I love him.
Yeah, I saw him in real life once, and you know what? I didn't care for him there either. I didn't care for him, Jarrett. Near Dark is not a 5-star movie.
RJ, you were on the wrong side of history with your Bill Paxton takes. Just
what about Near Dark? What's your opinion on Near Dark?
It's overrated. It's okay.
Yes, it is. It is definitely overrated.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't get the love. There's better vampires.
You guys always hate on movies directed by women. I just don't understand the theme.
I don't mind Catherine Bigelow. I think she's pretty cool. I've only seen a few of her movies.
Strange.
And I love movies directed by women.
I'm not even hating on it. I just think it's
one of those weird movies where everyone's like, this is the best movie ever made, like Solaris. It's the best sci-fi movie ever made. And you're like, is it though?
No.
No, it's not.
Oh my God. We've been recording for almost 4 hours.
It's funny how that happens, eh?
Luckily you can cut out a bit of that.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it. After the break, we're going to go settle down on that planet and face up
put on our
mesh tops and, I don't know, square up with our great guilts. Let the Holy Spirit wash over us. And people will contemplate just how brilliant and introspective that ending is.
To the podcast?
Yeah.
Good.